looking at On3's SEC coaching rankings, I'm just going to go in order.
Yep.
Is that cool? I'm going to go in order.
Sure.
Spoiler, it's going to take a minute to get to Bryan Harsin. All right. Number 1, Nick Saban, Alabama. Number 2, Kirby Smart, Georgia. Number 3, Brian Kelly, LSU? Question mark. Okay. Number 4, Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M. Too high, but I get it. Number 5, Mark Stoops, Kentucky. Number 6, Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss. Number 7, Sam Pittman, Arkansas. Number 8, Mike Leach, Mississippi State. Number 9, Josh Heupel, Tennessee. Number 10, Shane Beamer, South Carolina. Number 11, Billy Napier, Florida. Then here's Bryan Harsin at 12. Of the 14 head coaches in the SEC, they have Bryan Harsin 12th, then Eli Drinkwitz of Missouri 13th, and then in last at 14, Clark Lee of Vanderbilt. So when I first saw this, and I was introduced to this list when I was doing a radio hit on WNSP with Dave Schultz Monday afternoon, and they're like, yeah, they had Bryan Harsin at 12. What are your thoughts on that? My gut reaction, Charlie 5, was that is way too low.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about it, and like, I don't have a strong argument for him being better than any of the folks that are in front of him. My gut is Mike Leach, but how can you say that when you blew a 28-3 lead against him at Jordan-Hare? And then like Billy Napier, I'm actually surprised he's at 11 with all the hype around him. And then Shane Beamer is another one, but like, you lost to him. You lost to him last year.
Yeah.
And so all the other folks in front of him, Sam Pittman, you beat him, but like Sam Pittman's just using so much less and doing just as much as you. So I have a hard time moving him up any. Am I being too critical here?
I think maybe just a little bit, because if on one hand you say you can't be ahead of, if you say you can't be ahead of Shane Beamer or Shane Beamer or who's the other one that beat us? Mike Leach. Yeah. We stroked Sam Pittman and we stroked Lane Kiffin. I mean, the biggest robbery in this whole thing is Mark Stoops not being number 3.
That is true. That is accurate.
Mark Stoops is without a doubt the number 3 coach in the conference. He has just been unbelievable at Kentucky, and talking about doing doing more with less.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Heupel, like, you played an East schedule. Him being at 9, there seems to be a lot of hype for a guy that got hired that they didn't even want.
Sure. Yeah.
And then Shane Beamer, like, it just is what
I think there's more energy around Beamer because, the way they've added guys in the portal, he's probably won a little bit of favor for that. Yeah. The addition of Spencer Rattlers, I think a pretty big deal.
Yeah,
now their schedule stinks. Like, it's tough for them. So, like, I don't know if it's really going to matter when you look at it game by game, but still, yeah. I get the argument.
Sure. But yeah, like if you really, if you make an argument for, there's probably an equally strong argument against putting Bryan Harsin ahead of those, just by the way, the fallout of what happened after the season, the turmoil that you feel like is going to happen again, unless like he pulls off a miracle season, like you're going to face the same exact thing again. So they're kind of projecting that. And they even say as much in the little write-up, talking about how it's not a good fit. He survived the off season. But more than likely you're going to go through the same thing again. It's just, you're on your 3rd offensive coordinator in 2 years, in year 2. So there is a lot of things against him. I still feel like he's a good football coach.
I do too.
I feel like he's a middle of the pack SEC guy. He's just had a bad first year with some bad breaks.
Yeah, sorry I keep talking over you. You're freezing every now and then. I think in like 3 years, you could see him above Mike Leach. I think you see him above Shane Pittman. I think you honestly could see him above Lane Kiffin. I think that's eventually going to fizzle out. I just don't know if Bryan Harsin's going to get the time that he needs. That's my biggest concern of it all. And the other frustrating thing about this, Charlie 5, is like everybody's counting out Auburn this year. 5-7, 6-6, 7-5 is their ceiling, yada, yada, yada. You're seeing it everywhere. Last in the SEC West. But if they go out and finish 4th in the SEC West, behind your Bamas, your A&Ms, let's say Ole Miss does what they're supposed to do, and then, maybe Auburn edges out LSU and Arkansas. You're not going to see him shoot up these lists, even though he vastly will overachieve. If he does that, he will vastly overachieve what everybody is asking him to do. And I just don't think he's really going to be set up for them to give that back to him, which is totally ridiculous and totally unfair.
Yeah, but I'm wondering who compiles these lists, because I guess it's
they got
Jesse Simonton. I just feel like coaches, like people that are in football, maybe not reporters, but like if it was a coaches poll type thing and Harsin were to win 8 games, they would say, holy cow, the situation that he was in and he won 8 games, this dude's for real. I think like real football people would give him the credit where it's due, because to win 8 games with this roster, with everything he's been through, I think that would be a magnificent feat that he should get recognition for.
All right. So for folks listening or watching, where would you rank Bryan Harsin? 12 still feels low to me. I think 5 years from now, I'd rather have Harsin than Beamer. I think 5 years from now, I'd rather have Harsin than Pittman, even though I really, really, really like Pittman. The Heupel thing is super interesting, but I think if you look at both of what they've done so far, I think Heupel's is better. His situation is better. His path to 8 wins is significantly easier right now. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure how much of those arguments are fair and how much of them are just me being a homer, though, if I'm being real.
I think a good question that where you would rank him is, who would you rather have than him? Just go through the list. Who would you rather have than Bryan Harsin?
All right, so let's go through it. I'd rather have Saban. I'd rather have Smart.
Just go through the list.
I'd rather have Kelly. I'd rather have Jimbo. I'd rather have Stoops. I think I'd rather have Kiffin.
Yeah.
I think in a vacuum, I'd rather have Harsin than Pittman.
Yes.
I definitely would rather have Harsin than Leach. I think I'd rather have Harsin than Heupel. I'd rather have Harsin than Beamer. I'd rather have Napier than Harsin, I think. And then obviously I'd have Harsin over Drinkwick.
I agree.
And Lee. So that moves them up.
So we have him like 8.
Yeah, which is what my gut tells me. Well done. Well done in pointing out that exercise.
That's probably where I would have him.
8 sounds more reasonable.
I would take. Yeah, exactly. Like Shane Beamer, I don't want Shane Beamer over Bryan Harsin.
No.
I just don't. And then every guy you just said, I don't want Sam Pittman. I'm sorry, like this. That's just a.
I think Pittman works at Arkansas. I don't think he works
anywhere else. Right.
I'm not gonna say anywhere else, but I don't think it works everywhere for sure. For sure.
Exactly. And he's got Kendall Browse. Like, let's not pretend he doesn't have Kendall Browse as the offensive coordinator. So that's a big plus. When that goes away, what happens? So
yeah. So is Harsin better than the 8th coach in the SEC right now? Let us know in the Locked On Auburn Discord or on YouTube or on Twitter, wherever.